You think your feelings are yours, right? That heartbreak, that anger, that rush of joy, all coming from deep inside you. But what if I told you they're not? What if society, culture, and invisible rules are pulling the strings, scripting your emotions like scenes in a play? In this video, we're diving into the truth that schools don't teach. Your feelings might not be as personal as you think. Ready to find out who's really in control? Buckle up. It's going to challenge everything you believe. We live under the illusion that our feelings come from deep within, as if they're raw, untouched, and uniquely ours. But what if that entire belief is a lie? Imagine this. Two people in two different cultures react to the same situation. One cries at a funeral, the other stays perfectly stoic. Who's feeling it right? Who's being authentic? The truth is, feelings don't emerge from a vacuum. They're shaped, molded, and sometimes even assigned by the social world around us. Sociology doesn't ask whether your emotions are real. It asks where they come from, who gave them meaning, and why some are acceptable while others are punished. In other words, sociology strips away the romantic idea that you are a self-contained emotional island. Instead, it reveals the social currents constantly shaping what you feel, how you express it, and even whether you're allowed to feel it. Take sadness, for instance. In the West, sadness might be seen as a weakness, something to fix, to medicate, to hide. But in other parts of the world, sadness is treated with honor. It's communal, it's ritualized. You're not expected to bounce back in a week. You're expected to carry that weight, and the community carries it with you. So is sadness universal, or is it culturally manufactured? Sociology says both. The biological reaction, the tears, the slump in posture might be similar, but the meaning of that sadness and the way you perform it is a script written by your society. And here's the catch. You think you're improvising, but you're following the script. Sometimes so well, you don't even notice it's there. This isn't just about sadness. Think about love. Do you fall in love because your heart told you to, or because you were raised on movies, books, fairy tales, and social cues that defined what love should feel like, should look like, should be? Sociologists argue that even love, the most intimate of emotions, is socially constructed. Why else do love stories differ wildly across cultures and centuries? Why do some societies prioritize romantic love, while others see marriage as a transaction or a family alliance? You might say, but I feel it, it's real. And no one's saying it's fake. But real doesn't mean pure. Real doesn't mean independent. Real means experienced. But how you experience it is shaped long before you even know what you is. Here's another twist. Emotions can be policed. Ever been told, don't cry, man up, calm down, or you're being too sensitive? That's society stepping in and drawing the emotional boundaries. Some emotions are rewarded, others are punished. Gender plays a role, race plays a role, class, age, religion. All of these social structures influence what you're allowed to feel and how loud you're allowed to be about it. A black woman expressing anger might be labeled aggressive. A white man doing the same might be seen as passionate. Same emotion, different consequences. Why? Because society reads emotions through biased lenses. Sociology gives us tools to see that emotions are not just personal experiences. They're social performances. And in many ways, we're all actors on an emotional stage, following scripts we didn't write. So next time you feel something, anything, ask yourself, is this me, or is this what I was trained to feel? That's not an easy question, but it's the start of something powerful. Let's talk about something uncomfortable. The idea that your emotions are not just influenced, but performed. Yes, like actors on a stage, we perform our feelings based on who's watching, where we are, and what's expected of us. Think about it. You don't cry the same way at home alone as you do in front of others. The tears may be real in both cases, but the way they show up, the tone of your voice, how you hold your body, whether you cover your face or not, is shaped by context. Sociologist Irving Goffman introduced the idea of dramaturgy, the notion that everyday life is a series of performances. You're constantly managing impressions, adjusting your behavior based on your social audience. And this doesn't stop at actions, it extends deep into emotions. Have you ever been at work feeling furious but forced to smile? Or smiled through pain at a family dinner to avoid being dramatic? That's emotional labor, a concept developed by sociologist Arlie Hochschild. Emotional labor is the process of managing your emotions to meet the expectations of a situation, especially in roles like customer service, caregiving, or leadership. In other words, you're not just expected to do your job, you're expected to feel a certain way, or at least pretend convincingly. And here's the kicker. This pretending can reshape how you actually feel. A flight attendant may start the day exhausted or frustrated, but after hours of forced cheerfulness, their mood genuinely shifts. That's not magic. It's the psychological cost of emotional labor. Over time, it can leave people disconnected from their true feelings, or worse, unable to distinguish them at all. But let's go deeper. Even in private, we may find ourselves performing. Why? Because we've internalized society's gaze. Sociologist Michel Foucault talked about how modern power isn't about chains or cages. It's about internal surveillance. You don't need someone watching you when you've already absorbed the rules. So you scold yourself for crying too much. You rehearse what you'll say in the mirror. You tone down your joy so you don't seem arrogant. All of this is performance. All of it is emotionally choreographed. And it's not just individual behaviors. It's patterned across groups. Men, for example, are often taught from a young age to hide fear, sadness, and vulnerability. Be strong, don't cry, toughen up. These aren't just empty words. They become emotional blueprints. By adulthood, many men struggle to identify or express emotions beyond anger or silence, not because they don't feel, but because they were trained not to perform those feelings. Women, on the other hand, may be expected to show empathy, warmth, and self-sacrifice, even when it hurts. They're encouraged to smile through discomfort, to be nice even when boundaries are crossed, to care even when they're exhausted. These performances aren't natural. They're taught, enforced, and rewarded. And then there's race. Emotions are racialized in ways that are invisible to many. Black individuals expressing frustration may be labeled dangerous. Asian individuals may be stereotyped as emotionless. Latinx individuals may be expected to be passionate. These are not biological realities. They are racialized emotional scripts written by dominant cultural narratives. So what happens when someone breaks the script? When a man cries openly, when a woman shows anger, when a person of color refuses to fit the box they were placed in, often society pushes back with mockery, shame, or punishment. But that pushback reveals something powerful. The emotional performance is not natural, it's enforced. And if something must be enforced, it can also be resisted. That resistance is where sociology becomes not just analysis, but liberation. You don't have to perform what you didn't choose. But first, you have to see the performance for what it is. Have you ever felt something and then felt guilty for feeling it? Maybe you were angry when you were supposed to be calm, jealous when you should have been happy, relieved when others expected you to grieve. That conflict between what you actually feel and what you should feel, that's not just internal, it's social. And it comes at a cost. Sociology exposes a harsh truth. There's a powerful emotional hierarchy in society. Some emotions are welcomed, others are rejected, and your ability to feel them safely depends on your position in that social structure. Let's talk about grief. Western culture often treats grief like a temporary illness. You're allowed to cry for a bit. You can take time off work, but not too much. You're expected to return to normal quickly, to be strong, to move on. But grief doesn't work that way. And here's the disturbing part. If you grieve too long or too loudly, people begin to see you as unstable. Why? Because the emotion has exceeded its socially approved window. You didn't just feel, you felt wrong. This emotional policing happens everywhere. Anger is one of the most controlled emotions. It's seen as powerful, dangerous, and often gendered. A man showing anger might be viewed as assertive or dominant. A woman showing anger, emotional, hysterical, out of control. Same emotion, different social verdict. That's not biology, that's sociology. Even joy gets filtered. Express too much happiness in a serious space, and you're immature. Express it in the wrong context, and you're unprofessional. And if you're poor, marginalized, or suffering, showing joy can be seen as suspicious. How can they laugh if they're struggling? This is where the emotional hierarchy becomes a trap. Because now, not only do we have to feel the right way, at the right time, in the right amount, for the right audience. And failing to do that, it's not just awkward. It can lead to exclusion, ridicule, or even punishment. But here's what hurts the most. When you start to internalize that judgment. Over time, people learn to monitor themselves. You catch your own emotions before they reach the surface. You downplay your tears, rehearse your smiles, swallow your anger. It's not just a performance anymore. It's a survival strategy. Think of kids. How often are they told to calm down, use your inside voice, or don't be dramatic? It might sound harmless, but it's actually emotional training. They're learning what emotions are safe to express and which ones will get them into trouble. By adulthood, many of us don't need anyone to tell us how to feel. We already know the script. We've memorized it so well, we forget it's even there. That's the price of feeling wrong. You begin to doubt yourself. You question whether what you're feeling is real, whether it's valid, whether it's allowed. But sociology reminds us that emotions don't happen in a vacuum. They're born in bodies, yes, but shaped in families, cultures, schools, churches, media, workplaces. They're trained, and that training has consequences. Some people lose the ability to connect with what they truly feel. Others suppress their emotions until they explode. Some become experts at faking happiness while slowly collapsing inside. Others grow numb just to survive. And all the while, society tells them it's their fault. You're too emotional, you're too cold, you're unstable, you're difficult. But maybe the problem isn't the person. Maybe the problem is the performance they were forced into. Maybe it's time to stop asking people to feel less and start asking why we made some feelings so dangerous in the first place. Let's get honest. Emotions are powerful. They drive decisions, shape relationships, spark revolutions, and they make money, a lot of it. So ask yourself this: who benefits when you feel insecure, when you feel lonely, when you feel rage, love, or fear? In this chapter, we follow the money. First up, advertising. Entire industries depend on manipulating your feelings. Beauty companies thrive on your shame. Fitness apps need you to feel not enough. Dating apps are built on the promise of love, but only after you swipe past 100 rejections. It's not a glitch. It's by design. Sociology calls this emotional capitalism, the system in which your feelings are both the product and the currency. If a company can make you feel a certain way, they can sell you the solution. But to do that, they need to shape your emotions, or at least your perception of them. That's why marketing isn't just about products. It's about stories, about identity, about emotion. Ads don't just show shampoo, they show confidence. They don't just sell cars, they sell masculinity, power, freedom. They don't just pitch skincare, they promise self-worth. And over time, you begin to believe them. You start feeling bad when you're not smiling. You feel anxious when your body doesn't match the images you see. You feel pressure to be positive, productive, and grateful. even when you're falling apart. This is emotional control dressed as empowerment. Now think bigger. Social media thrives on emotional extremes. Posts that spark outrage, sadness, or joy are more likely to go viral. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok train users to perform happiness, success, and beauty, not necessarily to be those things, but to appear that way. That means millions of people are performing curated emotions for validation, likes, shares, followers, while often feeling isolated behind the screen. You're taught to perform emotions, so companies can profit from them. And if that wasn't enough, think about the workplace. Corporations now demand more than your labor. They want your attitude. Job descriptions mention positive energy and emotional intelligence not as bonuses, but as requirements. Workers are expected to smile, stay calm, and bring good vibes, even in toxic environments. This is the commodification of feelings. Your smile becomes part of your job. Your patience becomes a professional skill. Your emotional control becomes a KPI. And here's the dark truth. Not everyone pays the same price. Women are often expected to do more emotional labor than men, to manage tension, smooth conflicts, keep everyone comfortable. People of color are expected to stay calm in the face of discrimination. LGBTQ+ individuals are told to not make a scene. The emotional cost, heavy and usually invisible. Meanwhile, those in power, bosses, politicians, celebrities, are often allowed emotional outbursts. They can cry, yell, rage, and still be respected, because emotional rules aren't equally applied. So while some people are punished for showing emotion, others are paid to weaponize it. It's no accident, because as long as emotions remain personal, we won't challenge the systems behind them. But sociology pulls back the curtain. It shows how your feelings are entangled with power, with money, with social control. Your anxiety isn't just yours. It's part of a culture of productivity. Your loneliness isn't just yours. It's the cost of hyper-individualism. Your shame isn't just yours. It's the result of marketing strategies. And your desire to feel better? That's the emotional economy at work. So, who's really in control? Maybe it's time to stop asking how to fix your emotions and start asking who designed the system that broke them. Now that you've seen how deeply society scripts your emotions, from gender norms to capitalism, from childhood to workplace, there's one question left to ask. Can you ever truly feel freely? The answer isn't simple, but it's powerful. Let's begin here. Recognizing that your emotions are socially shaped doesn't make them fake. It makes them real within context. Understanding that context gives you something priceless, choice. Because once you see the strings, you can start cutting them. Reclaiming your emotional freedom starts with naming the scripts. When you feel something, joy, shame, anger, jealousy, pause and ask, who told me this feeling was right? Who told me it was wrong? Who benefits when I feel this way? This kind of reflection isn't weakness. It's radical. It's a direct challenge to systems that have spent generations convincing people that emotions should be controlled, hidden, or punished. Here's the truth. There is no natural way to feel. There is only what we've been taught, and what we dare to unlearn. Unlearning doesn't mean rejecting all emotional norms. It means examining them. It means giving yourself and others permission to feel differently, to grieve longer, to love messier, to rage with purpose, to exist outside the script. It also means recognizing emotional diversity across cultures, bodies, histories. Not everyone experiences emotions the same way, and that's not a flaw. It's richness. Sociology helps us value that complexity rather than erase it. But this work isn't just internal. Reclaiming emotion is also collective. It happens in protest. When people take to the streets, driven by shared grief or rage, they're saying, we refuse to hide how we feel. That's emotional power. That's political. It happens in friendship and community, where people create space for emotions that society often rejects. Vulnerability among men, joy in marginalized bodies, anger from the silenced. All of it is resistance. It happens in storytelling, when we challenge narratives that told us love has to look a certain way, or that success requires emotional suppression. Every story that dares to show raw, imperfect, unfiltered feeling is a crack in the system. And it happens in education, when we teach kids not just to behave, but to understand emotions as tools, not threats. Imagine what the next generation could do with emotional literacy instead of emotional discipline. Of course, none of this is easy. There will be backlash. Systems don't like to lose control. When people reclaim their emotions, they're harder to manipulate, harder to sell to, harder to silence. That makes emotional liberation a dangerous and necessary act. So what's the final takeaway? You are not broken for feeling too much. You are not weak for crying, or angry for shouting, or soft for loving deeply. You are not too emotional. You are a human being in a world that has tried and failed to own your heart. Now that you know that, what will you do with it? Your emotions were never the problem. The system that tried to control them was. Now that you see the truth, don't stay silent. Reclaim your right to feel, question the scripts, and help others do the same. Call to action. If this opened your eyes, share it. Drop a comment, challenge a belief, or simply ask, whose feelings are we really feeling? Let's start the conversation.